Hello, everyone. Welcome to another BDPA Tech and Career Talk, our final Tech and Career Talk of 2024. So it's been definitely a great year, a great series this year with some amazing speakers. So I encourage you over your holiday break, you have some downtime, go through the YouTube channel and check out some of what we've been discussing this year. We've had the VP of People for the Boston Celtics on this year. We've had entrepreneurs on AI experts. We've had quite the year, so we plan to keep it going in 2025 and make it better and bigger and better. So thank you for joining us for our final one of this year. If you are new here, you don't know me. I'm Devin Jenkins, our National Tech and Career Talk leader for BDPA. I see my predecessor on Chandria, who really got this thing going a few years ago. So always glad to have her with us as well. So we are excited to have you. As always, I like to give a little context behind the organization as well as this platform in case you're joining for the first time, you aren't familiar. The BDPA, Black Data Processing Associates organization started in 1975. So we are coming up on year 50 next year, which I'm sure we'll get into throughout the conversation today. But we started as an organization focused on continuing to build a strong tech talent pipeline within the African American community, developing computer and programming skills among youth, which continues to be a focus area today. We also provide professional development, career opportunities for adults in the field, professionals, and college students as well. So we have something for everyone. BDPA is one of our strong suits. It's one of the things that sets us apart. So we're glad to have you with us. The Tech and Career Talk platform, the second and fourth Friday of each month, we have speakers on talking about a range of topics these last 1 hour. And it's a way to continue to provide that professional development that we spoke about, as well as give you some tech knowledge and expertise. And we cover topics from as deep as programming, AI. We've had computer brain interaction before, and we talk about soft skills and working with jerks and emotional intelligence and all the things. So we cover the spectrum because we have a spectrum when we look at our audience. So we give you something that everyone can find some value in and take something from. So excited to have you with us today as we round out what has been quite the year 2024 and we enter into 2025, closing out our first 50 years as BDPA. I also want to acknowledge Brother Tim Brown on our immediate past president. This time last year, we had both of these gentlemen on here having a conversation as we pass the torch from one administration to the next. So glad to have that full circle moment as well. But without further ado, let's bring on our national BDPA president, Mr. Perry Carter. Perry, how you doing today?
Happy holidays, Devin. How are you? How's everybody?
I'm doing well, doing well. So glad to have you with us. You got your BDPA blue bow tie on. So we are glad to have you to wrap up the year. So if you are new here, the last Tech and Career Talk of each year, we tend to bring on our national leader at the time, and we do a year-end review. And we talk through, what went well throughout the year, what did we learn this year, what are opportunities to grow, and what can we look forward to as we continue to move to the future. So we're going to continue that today as well. To kick things off, I've kind of added a little icebreaker type of question into the mix for the Taking Career Talks this year. So, Perry, we had our VP of Strategy, Keith Scott, on earlier this year. He was talking about relationships and sales and how to thrive in that arena. And just to kick that conversation off, I asked them if you had to sell BDPA, how would you do it? So I'm going to ask you as our president today, a similar question. You're on Shark Tank. You're in the room with the sharks trying to get investors for BDPA. Give us your sales pitch.
So, in a nutshell, I'd like to work with just our acronym itself. You know, we have big data, predictive analytics. We can support that. But a quick sales pitch would be we are a community PMO, which is a program management office. And we actually not only collect the dots for the community, but we help each of our members, each of our mission partners connect those dots. So basically, we are a dot collection facilitator and we are a dot connection facilitator. And probably at that time, Devin, I'll probably getting off the second floor because that was the elevator pitch. We were out of the elevator. But the value proposition, though, in all seriousness, the value proposition is really what we bring to the table. This is not our first rodeo, so we would not be looking for startup funding in this situation. We're actually looking for mission partners that can help us to sustain our mission and to scale. So we have a variety of workshops that we do, programs that we have, and we look to our mission partners to help us actually scale. And I wanted to separate that from growth because growth can be expensive, but if we scale, and you and I were talking earlier before we got on about that last mile, we want to establish as many mission partnerships as possible within the zip code of that member or within that geocentric area of the member of BDPA and that particular mission partner, and scale with industry.
There it is, straight from the source. All about scaling. That's definitely an important thing as we think through what got us to 50 years, and how do we sustain this for another 50. And we have to continue to evolve and scale to do just that. And to your point, serve as that last mile delivery for our chapters and our members. So thank you for that, to kind of set the stage for BHA, all that we do and all that we're about. So let's get into it. So you're 1 year or coming up on a year in the presidency of the organization. I know you've been around and a leader in the org for a while, but it's always a little different being president. So just give us one word to kind of kick things off to describe your first year as National BDPA president.
My favorite word is going to be epic, EPIC, epic. No acronyms here for that. just straight up epic. And here's why. For everybody that's a member of, and we still have a few days. I'm going to sell memberships again. You still have a few days to be in what I consider record territory. You still have a few days to be a member of BDPA as we close out 2024. But this is an epic year because if you look at all the records we have in the markets on Wall Street, it's almost like the weather we have in the summertime with hurricanes. It starts off as a tropical depression, and we have rapid intensification. It becomes a category 3 to 5. So our industry is doing the same thing. And our industry has broken almost all records. If you look at all the indices here, all the markets, NASDAQ, the Dow, the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, all of them had record highs in 2024. And BDPA as an organization, we are part of that industry. We are part of those indices. We are investors. We are employees. We are mission partners. We are suppliers. So we're part of that success story for this year. So that's what makes it really epic. And then you look at the companies that at one time were all small. At one time, they were all startups. I'll just give you a few. You may have heard of a company called Amazon, NVIDIA, Meta, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla. They at one time were startups. They were small businesses. They had a lot of help from the federal government, and most of them are federal contractors right now, public sector, federal and civil, defense, and intel. But those companies I just listed, I guess they have a new name now. All these acronyms come up, and now they're called Mag 7, the Magnificent Seven. So later on, that'll be part of our strategy I was talking about and part of our engagement. But again, record territory, all of them, every last one of them had record highs this year in 2024. Even some of our sponsors were in record territory. I know we have Lilly, IBM, and Oracle. They all hit records this summer. I think looking at some of the data I have here, we have August 30th for Lilly. We have IBM December 6th, just a few days ago, and Oracle. So all these organizations that we work with and some of our mission partners and sponsors have all made record territories this year. And then my favorite organization, we're not publicly traded yet, but again, that goes back to the other acronym in BDPA, Business Development Proposals and Awards. We were very blessed this year to have chapter awards from Monroe and DC. When we pull all that together in BDPA, this is the first time in our history we've received grants totaling over $1 million. So these grants are going to be used to provide budget relief for the most part, the programs that we already have. And again, this is not our first rodeo. So we've had these programs for several years. And again, this is our 50th anniversary coming up. So we've had records across the board. So I can quit now, right? I can retire now, right, Devin? There's nothing else to do, right?
Well, I think there's plenty more to do, but I think there's been a lot so far, man. That $1 million grants, working with partners who have hit just records in their own right, in their own lanes, and we get to be benefactors of that and contributors to that. So yeah, I agree with you. That makes for an epic first year. And everyone can say that. So good job, sir.
So do we need a second year? That's my question. Do we need a second year? What else is left to do?
uh, oh man. So
There is one
um,
answer. There is one answer. Next,
yep.
we now have to scale. Okay. And we now have to take these success stories that you see in industry and in BDPA. And like you and I touched on earlier, we now have to conquer that last mile. So that's where the fun really begins. So there's a lot to do. Yes, I definitely invite my entire team back next year. We can be rocking and rolling. But yes, the last mile we want to conquer. And to that end, we're actually making sure that our sites portfolio is going to have the right infrastructure in place. We're also going to upgrade our standard operating procedures to do that. And we're also looking at, the QMS, the quality management system, for at least parts of our sites portfolio. The IT showcase, as well as HSCC as a beginning. So we can probably get at least some industry certifications to support that. But those are some of the areas where we definitely want to make sure that we improve. But not alone. We don't want to do anything alone as individuals. All of this is a team effort. And I can't thank all of our members and all of our leaders enough for the work they've done in the last quarter, last year, last decade, and the last 50 years.
So you started to touch on it a little bit. I was going to ask you about kind of know what are some of those great opportunities for us to continue to grow, expand, scale. To your point, you start touching on a few of those. Um, I thought I guess maybe to kind of ground us as you've been in this president's role. I'm sure you've interacted with leaders around other organizations in the technology space. We think about Bit, we think about ITSMF, we think about Blavity with Afrotech. There's a lot of different tech organizations out here. But what has BDPA's brand become? So currently, what is our brand as BDPA when we think about the technology organization community?
So I would say it really, and this is just my lens, my perspective. And I would say the brand has really been our pretty much our primary mission when we first started. It's just to promote awareness of the opportunities in tech for our community. And if our community is the African American community, a minority community, underserved communities, whatever community we are, that again, that last mile, our primary focus is to promote all of the opportunities in tech, the tech careers, now we have tech challenges, keep our local community informed of the headwinds and the tailwinds that affect our industry. And that really hasn't changed in 50 years. Like day one, when for those new on the phone, new to BDPA, when late Earl Pace and late David Wimberly, they were at a meeting. And again, at that time, industry was going through another paradigm shift. This at that time was the banking industry. And they were at a meeting. The banks were transitioning from paper-based check writing, check processing to electronic funds transfer, a subset of that, which was ACH, the automated clearinghouse. And because this was a government initiative and federal agencies, the Fed were working on this, they needed small businesses as mission partners and suppliers to help them with that process. So when Earl went to this meeting, he was the only African American in the room, the only one. And he basically said, went back to David and some of the people he worked with in his company, Pace Data Systems, small business that he started. He said, hey, we need to get more people like us involved in this industry. And if you remember the movie Hidden Figures, it was very similar to the scene where all the young ladies got together and said, ladies, we need to learn how to program these computers in this lab. I think the language was Fortran in the movie for NASA. So again, our brand is really what we've set out to do from day one, is that make sure that the community stays aware of our industry challenges. Now more than ever, we have to focus on technology and policy, tech and media. How do we protect our data? So we have, again, that last mile I was telling you about as we evolve and emerge into other new industries that are spawning. It is very important where our members, our mission partners, and I consider it the triad, our colleges and universities on the academia side, our mission partners in government, public sector, and also our mission partners in private sector. All of us have to work together to really help our communities pretty much mature with industry.
Solid ecosystem, right?
Absolutely.
There's an ecosystem that we're a core pillar of when we think about technology awareness and making sure opportunities reach those in our communities through these last mile services that you mentioned. If the national organization is the hub, how do we make sure we have the right infrastructure set up in these different places to get to our chapters and our partners in these schools? So thank you for that, Perry. I want to switch gears a little bit into an acronym. If you don't know, Perry's the acronym king. He lives by that. So one of my favorites that has come out of your administration is $1 billion programs available. That one that rings in my head often. So I just wanted to maybe get your perspective on as we look over, this first year. How has the organization tapped into some of these $1 billion programs that are available for the org itself, but also for our members?
So I think it's a good segue. We were just talking about it. So just real quick for your members, I was on active duty as a data systems officer many, many moons ago in the Marine Corps. And the last 2.5 to 3 years, I was at headquarters, and I was assigned to as a model manager. And when I got my orders, I had no idea what that was. But it's a computer model manager, and we did illicit assignments in the manpower branch, manpower. So in that model, we maintain staffing goals, assignment goals, and the outputs from that model were orders for every Marine to their next duty station. So he or she had a profile, and we had 175,000 active duty Marines at the time. We did not federate with the reserve components yet, but in this model, it's very similar to what's going on right now throughout the world. We're looking at okay, how long have you been on station? How long have you been on your contract? How long have you been in this position in your company? Once you reach a certain threshold that's determined by whatever algorithms that you have, you become a mover. I put that in quotes, air quotes. Once you become a mover, then the model assigns you to the recommended duty station, your next assignment. So if you look at that writ large across industry, we've been doing that as an organization, but not formally. We have not automated that process. But going back to what you're saying, that $1 billion programs available, BDPA's for the long term, we want the organization to be able to take every member or every company, every startup, even our mission partners, every large business that we work with. If there is a contract that you have in your pipeline that's forecast, or if you have anything coming out of R&D, the research and development, if there's a new technology that's evolving, then you have to get that into our model. And what I mean by that is like the models that we had like a recruit distribution model. So all the Marines are coming in from San Diego and Paris Island. We knew where they were going to school next. They all went to a school after they finished boot camp. And then from that school, they had an occupational specialty and they went to their duty station. Industry is no different. You either finish high school, you have a GED, or you get a certification. Once you get that certification or your clearances or that next step, you become a mover. If you do not have an assignment already, you become a mover. So going back to what I said earlier, we as an organization, nationally and at the local levels, we want to be able to collect those dots. Who are the movers? Who are the members that are ready to move? And if you're ready to move, we want to find that next program. That program if you're going to get paid, I mean, you can volunteer. I mean, I've heard everybody wants to get paid now. So that's another conversation. That's another workshop in the conference. But if you want to get paid and you are a mover, which means that you are basically your contract is ending, your job is ending, your task is ending, or your mission set is obsolete or it's sunsetting, whatever situation you may be in, you are considered a mover. So you want to leverage BPA's relationships, our networks, the training programs that we have, the mission partners that we have, and the relationships that we own. You want to take advantage of that. And with this model that I'm sharing with you, you want to make sure that you understand that this has to be attached to another $1 billion program that's available. So you can take a program such as, say, intelligent transportation systems. I gave a presentation in Chicago at a conference we had in Chicago, I think back in 2009. So ITS today is now a full-blown joint program office at the Department of Transportation. And these are smart cars, smart highways. So now you're starting to see companies like I mentioned earlier, Tesla is one of the companies. So you have electric vehicles, you have smart highways. If you are interested in robotics or robotics programs, or are you trying to move into that space, if transportation is what, floats your boat, then you want to be able to identify those programs. And back with BDPA, you want to establish, if one is not established already, a special interest group that focuses on autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, batteries, energy. So that's one example of how a model, and basically creating our own model, will help members, startups, colleges and universities, our mission partners, really partner with us for those billion-dollar programs that are available. And again, the federal government typically has, all those agencies have those programs. Now, those agencies are probably undergoing scrutiny right now. You may have new initiatives coming out with the new administration. But again, the work still has to be done. So it's not going to be done by the federal workforce. It's going to be done by companies that you and I know very well. And many of our members are entrepreneurs and have companies that will serve the federal government if we do not have that done by the federal workforce. So again, that's what the acronym is. And I think the other part of your question was, how have we as an organization done that? Well, one program that has several $billions is NASA. So we were able to win a grant last year for NASA for fiscal year 24. Those particular opportunities, the funding arrived late in the fiscal year. So a lot of those efforts are ongoing, and our last day of period performance is July 31st of 2025. So that's one example, one success story of national BDPA being able to win and capture an award. And just for those in the audience, it was $725,000 for digital workforce transformation. So again, that pretty much encapsulates what I just said. We want to make sure that wherever you are right now, we want to take advantage of the grant for our sites programs, our academies. If you need another certification, we want to be able to fund that and support members that are seeking to get additional certifications or additional training. Of course, that'll be on a first come, first served basis. And Dr. Jesse Bimley is our principal investigator. And we will have more information on that probably within the next few days, because our next set of classes will be starting next quarter.
Wow. So I just want to say what I think I heard. Sounds like we just got access to $725,000 to reinvest into our members who may have work they're doing that ties into these efforts, learning development that I know they want to take advantage of to get certifications and skill sets to be relevant in this space. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's correct. And the chapter presidents actually have access to the grant itself, the documentation, the proposal that we wrote. So we presented this back as early as I think last May when the announcements came out, and we also touched on it during the conference itself. So now, just to walk you through, just for those in the call, the academies that we're looking to do. Now, some of these academies will be going well beyond the conference, but we want to make sure we have the operating procedures, the documentation, and the staffing established. But the academies that we have slated include the AI Academy, Cloud Academy, Cybersecurity Academy, Data Science Academy, High Performance Computing Academy, Robotics Academy, Biotech Academy, and Quantum Technology Academy. So, and we'll get this in writing, of course, but we've had a series of meetings with HBCUs that we're partnering with. I was at Bowie State University earlier this week. In Houston, we visited Prairie View A&M University. So the academies are going to be ongoing far beyond this grant. But going back to the acronym, we're going to actually use the same model, the same grant, and everything we just touched on today to scale. So, and when you and I touched on the last mile, we want every chapter basically to have in essence, fully funded, fully staffed academies, fully funded, fully staffed PMOs at the chapter level. So, and that, Devin, you may have heard me talk about when, in part of my campaign a couple of years back, the vision for the 2030. I call it 30-30. So in essence, we're looking at having 30 BDPA chapters, fully funded, fully staffed, and generating $30 million year over year, beginning as early as 2030 and beyond. So that was the vision that we have. And the only way to do that is by getting formally attached to grants, contracts, subawards to billion-dollar programs that are available. And that is The ultimate BDPA.
Man, what a story. So glad to be a part of an organization that's thinking and doing these types of things. I see some comments coming through the chat. How excellent this is, the outstanding, the work you're doing. This is exceptional. So kudos to you and the team for making this happen. And it's a good segue into something I wanted to talk about because we talked about ecosystems and mission partners, providing these opportunities to members. And this comes with collaboration, what you were just saying, being attached to the right programs, to the right partners. So you just mentioned NASA and what we're doing with them. You mentioned Lilly, Oracle, a few others. Maybe just give a little context for those who might have some of these connections we're looking for. What would you say is the persona of the ideal partner or sponsor for BDPA?
That's a good question. I don't have a really a great answer for that. But one of the, I would say, as far as a framework is concerned, you may have heard me mention in previous meetings establishing a strategic triad. And that triad ultimately will become our persona, but it won't be by itself. I've never been a firm believer of individuals. I'm always looking at very sharp teams and being surrounded by great leaders. People that have the initiative, they see a problem, get it fixed. If you have a problem you need to share with us, with our board or NEC, have a solution, have several solutions. Think outside the box. And to that end, the triad I was alluding to is that we now are going to be working more closely with our large business partners, SMBs, small and mid-sized companies that are our mission partners, our schools, to make sure that we have a research and development component, a supply chain component, and of course, our traditional talent acquisition component. And all of the organizations I've met with so far, we've already had meetings with several of our sponsors already. I've been on group calls, but that triad, so in essence, over the next 5 years, we expect a minimum of having 3 separate booths or tables or pavilions at our conferences or at our conventions, regional and national. And again, the R&D team, they pretty much are working on concepts that we will see 2, 3 years down the road. So I need to get that over to my 6th graders and my 7th graders, because whatever you're working on right now in R&D, by the time they become members of our high school computer competition team or our robotics team, or if they are going to be in our high performance computing academy or cloud academy or AI, they will already know what you need. And through our grants and through our programs, they will already have the certification. So they'll be leaving high school with a minimum of 1 year of college degree, a college, I would say classes. They will have at least one or two industry certifications, A plus, ITF plus, Cloud plus. Bottom line is we want to be able to make sure that 6th graders, 5th graders, middle school students understand what our R&D teams are working on in industry across all vertical markets, aerospace, defense, transportation, healthcare, health tech, manufacturing tech, agriculture tech, fintech. You want to make sure that all of our young students understand where industry is going with respect to your R&D teams. So Devin, what I mean by that, sir, is that I expect to see General Electric's R&D folk at BDPA Con. And you heard it here first. We will call them. And Tim Brown knows I am not afraid of calling these people. But just help you out though. I usually look for the senior Marine in office. Whoever's a senior Marine in your organization, I try to call them first and just give them the warning order. Say, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is the mission set. But that's one example of that particular triad. The other part is supply. The supply chain. Now, again, we've heard the word supplier diversity, and some people like the word diversity, but diversity is not going to go away. You see that in people using, hey, I have a diverse portfolio. So diversity is not going to go away. But I would say for those on the call, most of you know that as supplier diversity. So typically the federal government has always mandated participation from small businesses. And they include companies that are veteran-owned, women-owned, minority-owned, those that are in underserved communities, hub zone companies, or just small, but these are tremendous components. These are very, very important components of our defense industrial base. And as a superpower, Uh, Most people know that as a superpower, to maintain our supremacy, to maintain air dominance, to maintain dominance in all of our warfighting domains, air, land, sea, space, and cyber, we need the best suppliers that industry can provide. And again, the companies I just mentioned earlier, a lot of the companies all have defense contracts or government contracts to help us maintain supremacy. So again, we want to make sure that whoever is in charge of procurement and your suppliers, supply chain, we need to have them at the conference as well. And then, of course, definitely when we want to upgrade and upskill our workforce, so we always will welcome our talent acquisition teams as well. So that's the persona, that's the framework I'm looking at. So as we engage in the next several years, or the next 50 years, you want to be able to have that strong triad of R&D, supply chain, and talent acquisition.
There's a lot packed in there. um,
I
and
just made three, just three.
yeah, it's a lot packed in those three. Those
It's
three have three.
it's fluid. It's fluid, right?
No, I love it. And I'm excited to see this come to fruition. And I was asking that because you've mentioned some of the key partners we've had up until this point. And I'm curious if there are some additional partners that you may be able to speak to that are in the pipeline as we look to 2025, that the organization should be aware of that we're working with.
So some of the information is proprietary, but we did share that with our president's meeting this week. So every month we have a president's meeting, and so you can probably get that information from your local chapter president. And if he or she did not attend that meeting, they probably need to call me. Um, but do it while I'm in a good mood, the holiday season. But if your chapter president didn't show up at these monthly presidents meetings, they definitely need to call me.
There it is. So presidents, make sure you're showing up.
Yes.
And
But
members,
now,
talk to
to
your
answer your question,
president.
though, I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to just leave it open like that. We do want to encourage mission partnerships with existing nonprofits already in that last mile. So, like the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, for an example, organizations that already have grants. Okay, they already have grants. They already have a mechanism. They already have people that understand, like your acronym you threw out. You and I touched on last year, Dr. P4. The D is domain knowledge, and the R is relationship, and the four P's: the people, the processes, past performance, and pricing to win. Making sure that your grants are priced to win, or making sure your grants have enough margin in there. Some people have that final P as profit, but that entire acronym covers the engagement with all the organizations in your community, and we're encouraging chapters that are not in position to prime or pursue a grant get on a team as a sub awardee. Uh, and just like we said earlier, you want to be able to add all of your academies and all of your sites program modules in that grant. If it's funded, then you get the staffing. The funding will pay for the staffing. The funding will pay for the materials that you need. The funding will pay for registration at BDPA Con, regional BDPA cons, and a national conference. But you have to get the funding. So that's one of those either or scenarios. If you are not able to prime a grant or a contract, get on as a mission partner, get on as a subcontractor. But do not sit on a donut. Do not come into the next fiscal year and the following fiscal year sitting on a donut. And what I mean by that is zero. You have a sub award, subcontract, or have a contract or grant award, but don't come in sitting on a donut.
So I think that's a good segue into what's next. We talked a lot about what we're doing, and you've even gotten into some of the things that are in motion currently that we may not have been aware of. So we're getting ready to celebrate year 50. It's a big milestone for the organization. I know it's something that you've been excited about. If anyone's heard any of your conversations throughout the year, you've definitely mentioned year 50 in some way, form, or fashion. So what are some of the exciting plans that are in store to commemorate this milestone?
So I would say first and foremost, I would say Judy Lane. She'll probably be reaching out and touching everybody. Everybody loves Judy. I know she's been around for quite a while. I've known her probably since when she was New York chapter president. But she's in charge of the excitement. So BDPA Con 50 is the show. So that will be the event. It's in Atlanta next year. All the information, I think there's going to be a major release this weekend. So I'm going to defer all the good stuff, information to Miss Judy. But that information will be available online. It'll be available through social media. But yeah, BDPA Con 2025 or BDPA Con 25 is going to be our event next year. Now, locally, I know last year we mentioned that all of the chapters are highly encouraged to have a local event. It doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be large. And I tell, and you've all known me a long time. I said, even if I have to go to a local establishment with a cupcake and a candle and two brothers and sisters from BDPA and propose a toast to BDPA's 50th anniversary, that's our event. That's our event. And we move forward. But I encourage all the local chapters to really look at, whatever your favorite event is for the year. During the conference last year, we passed out an 18-month calendar. We will update that one in the next few days for the next 18 months. So we want to make sure that we have a rolling 18-month calendar. So chapters and chapter leaders can see events that have occurred in the past, events that are planned for the future, and events that are actually ongoing and have already been identified for the future. And we sent that out in Microsoft Word so they can modify it, they can tweak it. You can even take it to your local printer and print off your own calendar and hand out to the local barbershops, local beauty salons, whoever you network with. You can actually take that calendar and modify it yourself locally. So we did that earlier this quarter. But to go back to your original question, we do have, I would say, some mission partners that have verbally committed to supporting BDPA Con and some of the 50th anniversary events. And as we get those events finalized, we'll let the chapters know. The board and NEC has to sign off on whatever documents that we need to sign off for legal and anything that we have to add. And then we push it out to the rest of the world.
Exciting times, and can't wait to see what Judy pulls together for us. If you know Judy, you know she's a force to be reckoned with. So,
Yes,
and
sir.
it's going to be a time for sure, and I'm excited to be a part of it. Something to think about as we move into year 50. It's a commemorative year for us as we kind of put a cap on our first 50 years, and start to open the door into the next 50. But there's also a change in the administration and Congress happening, in the White House in DC in January. So while we're on the cusp of closing out a chapter, there's a new chapter starting in terms of our White House administration with the presidency and the Congress. So being close to government, very tapped in with what's happening in that realm. What are the implications for the technology industry? Based on what we know of the strategy for this new administration, and what role does BDPA play in all that? How does it impact us? So what should we be expecting and looking out for?
That's a good question, Devin. And hopefully I touched on all those points in the conversation we've had earlier. So nothing really is going to be changing. We do what we do. We do our job. We do it well. We make sure that our chapters are, you've heard me say this before, we want to make sure that it's about readiness, procurement ready, program ready, and audit ready. And that, again, boils down to the paperwork, making sure that all the forms that you need for government, federal, state, and local government are compliant, are complete, are submitted, because that basically is just like license and registration, please. If you get pulled over in this administration and you don't have your license and registration, we don't have any bail money in the budget, so I don't, I'm the official voice spokesperson for BDPA. So if anybody, any chapter is getting in a situation that we need to help out, we will. But again, I'm just saying, in all seriousness, what you want to make sure is that procurement ready, program ready, and audit ready is what we're doing, which is why we have the PMO, the funding from NASA. We're developing the paperwork, making sure that our programs are ready. The procurement readiness means that how can an agency buy from your local chapter? If they want a conference, if they want a workshop, can your chapter accept payment from the government, federal, state, or local? So those are areas about being procurement ready. Now, to address your question, you're going to have a new administration. And from, I'm sure everybody has seen a lot of the news, you see everything on social media, but at the end of the day, it's going to be rapid change and some paradigm shifts. And toward that end, many people are looking at having the term I used earlier, unfettered capitalism. Now that's a very generic statement, but that in essence goes back to frictionless and seamless procurements, uh, new different other transaction authorities or OTAs, some people call them, but being able to get things faster. The regulatory barriers may be reduced, which means that small businesses may not have to wait too long to get permits to get started. Large businesses, for that matter, may not have to wait too long to get permits. So again, you're looking at the technical efficiencies in government initially. I know there's a group working on that has not been approved or authorized by Congress yet. Confirmations have not gone through Congress yet. So that's still out there. You're looking at challenges that we have. Of course, we always have that in public health. You're looking at the aerospace and defense markets are going to be increasing. And we still have threats. We still have threats from our haters that are on the globe. People still hate the United States. So we still have those threats to deal with. And we're basically looking at, doing the best things we can, being more efficient. So if that's in your wheelhouse, if you're a small business, what we do, it's part of our middle name, is we process data. So there's gonna be a lot of data to process. So if you have tools and skills to help get this information to our mission partners, to our small businesses, to our communities faster and more efficiently, those are extremely valuable tool sets to have and talent to have. And again, if you're a small business, you want to have that past performance in doing that.
Great way to just kind of level set us. I guess regardless of how you feel about the new administration, whether you love it or hate it, it's coming. And I think you've given us some practical things to be thinking about with how we position ourselves as business owners, as employees, and as members of BDPA to continue to thrive with the changes that are coming. To your point, there'll be some paradigm shifts and fast change.
Yeah, so Devin, it's almost like, again, I use one of those metaphors. Uh, Almost like the weather. If you're a fan of the Weather Channel, you see how when you have a tropical depression and you see these storms forming off the coast of Africa, right? So some of those storms eventually become full blown hurricanes. Some storms form right in the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean. But long story short, it's very similar. If you look at the metaphor, it's like the weather forecast. So you're looking at rapid intensification of industry, and again, this is happening now. This is not, inauguration day or the companies I just alluded to, the Mag 7. Everybody was in record territory this year. Everybody. That's beyond Cat 5. If you use a metaphor, we've never had anything like that. And so that's beyond Cat 5. So the Mag 7, they've all reached top, record closes. All the indices, NASDAQ, the Dow, S&P 500, Russell 2000, record closes. And they're going to be buying more equipment, some from each other. So you're going to need technical professionals to do that. And then you have more legislation now. Part of what you're going to see is probably less regulatory impediments. So you may not have that many barriers to entry, which takes you back to that unfettered capitalism term I used earlier. So for the tech industry, one could pretty much rely on having tremendous tailwinds. You still have headwinds because that's what Congress has to do. That's what, you still have to have checks and balances. There will be some tailwinds. But I'm just saying, if you look at all these organizations in record territory, if you are in tech, this is the industry to be in. And going back to BDPA, what you want to make sure we do is all the academies that I listed, that's not the end game. That is not a final list. You want to be able to also include special interest groups, very similar to ACM and IEEE. They're special interest groups. So if there's a special interest group that if you all want to put together a SIG to talk just about cryptocurrencies or fintech, I would highly encourage those interest groups in every chapter, and then bring your findings to the conference next year, because I can all but guarantee you we will be talking about crypto at our next conference.
Absolutely. Perry, there's been a lot in this, and I don't want to take all the time. So we have a little bit of time left, and I do want to open the floor to anyone on the call who wants to ask anything or comment on anything. There was a question in the chat from Samuel. I don't know if you're still on or not. But Samuel asks, how is BDPA promoting the opportunities for people of color to engage in research as a career track through programming and partnerships? And how is this being developed annually?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Thank you, Devin. Yeah, and thank you, Perry, for highlighting what BDP is doing. The question was in regards to those organizations that are locally in areas where BDPA chapters are, in terms of how the organization is encouraging in the research career tracks. What are some of the ways that BDPA has been and is and will and be expanding on research as career opportunities there. And I did hear earlier, as you shared, about getting those high school students and the younger people already equipped with the skills as they do. But I was just wondering what specific programmatic things, examples that you give that BDP has been doing in different ways and encouraging, particularly marginalized communities, those amongst us who don't get the opportunities to have full things, veterans and formerly incarcerated communities, people who are trying to get back on their feet. How's BDPA helping in those areas?
So Sam, that's a lot, but you've been around BDPA long enough, and I think this question is probably for everybody on the call. But to address that, and again, we can definitely have a workshop on this at the conference. I encourage you to do that and work with our team to do that. But I mentioned R&D is one of our triads. Remember I said our R&D, we had supply chain, and we had talent acquisition. So I'm encouraging all of our large businesses, especially those that have billion-dollar market caps, trillion-dollar market cap companies, not only bring their talent acquisition team, bring their R&D team, and bring their supply chain team, their procurement teams to the conference, every conference. And because the R&D component basically shares, and again, we don't want anything proprietary, but you have to have some type of forecast to let our pipeline know, the young kids we have in the pipeline, college students, like you said, people coming out of high school, returning citizens, people that have been incarcerated. BDPA, our role in our community is to share with them the opportunities that are available. So to that end, what we've been doing, and again, I would say you can follow us on LinkedIn. If you go out to BDPA Today on LinkedIn and also BDPA on LinkedIn, we've been sharing all of those activities and some of the things we do, some of the things our mission partners do out on LinkedIn. And, but again, I encourage you to make sure that these materials are shared with your local chapter. Now, Sam, if I know you well enough, you are probably still in Northern Virginia. So we do have a Northern Virginia chapter, very active. They have open house, I believe, scheduled for January 25th. So we'll make sure you have an invitation to that. But Sam, I hope I answered part of your question. I don't think we have time to answer the full question, but R&D is definitely first and foremost on our radar. We also, if you look at the same links I gave you, I've highlighted a lot of opportunities that Department of Defense is doing through DARPA, the intelligence community, their component, IARPA, health, HHS, ARPA-H. So these are areas, advanced research and technologies, R&D components that are ongoing, that we encourage local BDP chapters to stand up their special interest groups, as well as if you need an academy to focus on that, we can stand up an academy for you. We want to make sure that we have the operating procedures in place and the support mechanism and the infrastructure in place to do that. But we've been doing that for quite some time. I don't think we've been doing it for 50 years, but I think ever since Dr. Bimley came aboard and launched our SITES program in 1986, we've pretty much been doing that in 1986 because all of his students and all the Jeff students we've had to come through the BDPA IT showcase, they've been writing white papers. They present their posters at every conference. That is R&D. That is part of the research and development, being able to do the research, write a white paper, present that to industry, present that to a customer. That is pretty much how you win proposals. That is how you win contracts, by developing the concept and giving the customer a good price and establishing that relationship. So Sam, I hope that helps. If not, send me a text. I hope to see you January 25th at our opening house in Northern Virginia with BDPA Nova.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You know, I've been involved with the IT showcase, so I do,
Yes.
and I do look forward to working with you as we work towards the conference there. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you for that, Sam. We have another question in the chat from Janelle. She asks, how do we get access to the model you were talking about?
We mentioned several models. Now, the one I mentioned it's actually open source. So if you actually go out and just do a global search on United States Marine Corps Enlisted Assignment Model, EAM, there's several white papers that were written in Monterey, our postgraduate school in Monterey. So there are a lot of white papers on it. You'll see the algorithm. It's pretty much open source. So I would start there if you're looking at that particular model. The other models are ongoing right now in artificial intelligence. So again, my recommendation is to, if you're not a member of BDPA already, whatever local chapter you have, get involved with your local chapter's AI Academy. If they do not have one, stand one up, find the right people to get one stood up. We'll support you that. We'll support you on that. But and then you can have again the models that you want to work on there, and also give Dr. Billy or myself an email. Back, I would say in 1990, I chaired the 1990 conference here in Washington, D.C., and we also had a group of young students in Dr. Billy's program. They presented a model of a Black teenager's shopping habits at a mall, and that was an AI model. So we used the language known as Prologue. So those students, BDPA and Dr. Bimley, we've been working on those models ever since the late 80s, early 90s. So there's a good story on that. You can actually do a global search on BDPA or BDPA Today and talk about AI, Black teenagers, shopping habits, model, Dr. Bimley. You'll see the story. But access to the models are there. And again, a lot of it's open source. And if you need to have an AI academy or a special interest group stood up in your chapter, that's by far the best way forward. I would say use that framework to get it started. And I would encourage you to deliver that as a workshop at our conference.
Janelle, did I answer your question?
Somewhat. I was mainly referring to the one where, like, you were stating how it identifies if you're a mover.
Yes, that's okay. That's the algorithm I talked about. So that's
Okay.
actually, it's a white paper. It's open source. You'd have to, the keywords there would be EAM or Enlisted Assignment Model, Monterey, Navy Postgraduate School, United States Marine Corps, and Manpower. So all those words should get you to that white paper. And some of those papers are dated. You're looking at many, many moons ago. I was I was a young lieutenant many, many moons ago. So, but again, it's open source, and if you can make a better mousetrap, because that's where we are right now. And I would just keep it simple. If you are a mover and you're looking to get paid, then you need to know where your next assignment is going to be. And our model generated the top three best recommended duty stations for those Marines based on their skill set, based on their time on station, and based on where they were. We had a transportation model, feed the model, because it was cost effective to move a Marine from Camp Lejeune to Quantico than it was to bring a Marine from Camp Pendleton, California to Quantico. So the model, we had all those models feeding my model, or feeding EAM. And if you're coming from overseas, it didn't matter. You were coming back from Oconus to Conus, it didn't matter. You can have your choice of duty station. So you can do that with your chapter. Everybody in BDPA right now is probably going to have a different job in the next 5 years, which means that on your radar, the model you're talking about, they will be classified as a mover right now, within the next 6 months, or the next year. And if you are a mover, then you need to be at the conference next year to find out where your next duty assignment is going to be. So that's my take on that. But again, there's ways to monetize that as well. But if you need more information on that, by all means, reach out to me, DM me on LinkedIn, or just send me an email.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Janelle.
No.
We have another question from Chandria. This will probably be our last one as we're coming up on time. But are there marketing materials and tactics available for the academies you mentioned for adult professionals?
So the short answer is that is ongoing, underway. Part of our grant is to establish those materials. So the answer is no right now. They're not immediately available, but we are working on those right now as we speak. And so we do hope to have those materials available. And again, this is not just for next year. And this is not just for the period of performance of the grant. We want this to be long-term, and we can pass this on to the next administration.
All right. Well, Perry, we're coming up on time, but any last words you want to say to put a bow on this as we wrap up the year, head into the holidays, and get ready for year 50?
Yes, sir. We'll put a bow on it. I want to wish everybody happy holiday, happy, safe holiday. Again, thank you so much for being a member of BDPA. We could not have done this without you. These last 50 years have been very exciting. We're looking forward to our next 50 years. And again, stay tuned for major announcements coming up from Judy, our marketing team, conference team, our social media teams as well. And also, again, I just can't thank everybody enough. So Devin, if there's any more information people need to hear from us or anything, they have our numbers, they have our emails. They can DM us on social media and LinkedIn. But again, I want to thank all of our sponsors. We couldn't have done it without our sponsors, and also the small businesses. A lot of you own your own companies, and we see you. We see exactly what you do, and I've had a chance to meet most of you and talk to you on opportunities with BDPA, with the industry and government. So, keep it moving. And again, our thoughts and prayers go out to family members that will not be with us this holiday. But Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and have a safe holiday season. And Devin, thanks so much again for these Tech and Career Talks. These are exciting. We enjoy the audiences, and good work.
Thank you, Perry. So thank you for a phenomenal year from great first year of the presidency. Excited for what's to come as we enter year 50. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, comment, share this with somebody who needs to hear what we have going on. And everybody, make sure you're on BDPA.org, become a member, join a chapter near you, and make plans to be at BDPA Con next year in Atlanta. It's going to be a great time. And I can't wait to see you all there. So as always, stay safe, stay blessed, enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you in January.